Everybody always thinks about, well, it's going to replace jobs, it's going to kill jobs. And it's not how I think about it and how we've thought about it either. Is we should be hiring 300 to 500 people, but we want to hire 30 to 50 people to feel like 300 to 500 people.
In an agentic world, almost every individual contributor becomes a manager of sorts, but they're managing agents instead of managing people.
What makes AI and generative AI successful is that you have to have a very solid foundation of data governance and data structure.
What strong opinion do you hold about how to implement AI correctly?
There's a lot of hype out there, but if you're not leveraging the technology / AI or generative AI to drive business value, then you shouldn't do it.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to and watching another episode of The Chief AI Officer. Today, I'm excited to bring you David Sedlock, who is the Chief AI Officer at Zayo Group. David, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, can you give our audience, our listeners, everyone, a sense of where you're joining from, who you are, a bit of background on yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm joining from Boulder County, Colorado, so where I live. I'm excited about the reach out, from Ben to have opportunity to share kind of the journey and successes that we've had at Zayo and also some of the context from my previous roles, establishing big data organizations at AT&T and otherwise. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity.
Yeah, there's plenty of things to dig into today. For anyone who doesn't know, can you just give a very brief description of the Zayo Group and what you do?
Yeah, most recently, I'm the chief data officer at Zayo Group. Zayo is the largest independent connectivity company in the United States. Around, I think, 145,000 route miles. So it's predominantly a business to business or wholesale provider of broadband and connectivity. You might, things you hear about the AI wave and all the hyperscalers and, telecom and other companies, those are the largest customers of Zayo. And so you're working, in the AI hype, getting connectivity to all the data centers that are being established. And we also go down market and mid market. But the vast majority of the customers are business to business or wholesale. There are other pieces of business, but they're very small. We also bleed into Western Europe as well, but predominantly in North America.
Great. Yeah, thanks for the overview. You mentioned AI hype. Before the show, in the back and forth as we prep for the interview, you said that you were kind of Mr. No on AI until more recently at Zayo. And, what made you shift from potentially more of a skeptic to more of an enabler and someone leading the charge at Zayo?
Yeah, it wasn't that I didn't and don't believe in AI or generative AI. But what I do truly believe in is that you have to be ready for it. And so I said that at the first board meeting that I was at I just said, I'm not going to talk about AI. And I did it a lot for effect because that gets people's attention just given how much things are out there. And I said, it's not no never, it's no for right now. And what I meant by that, I explained, articulated that to the senior leaders and the board members that we worked with is, what makes AI and generative AI successful is that you have to have a very solid foundation of data governance and data structure. There's steps that we have to go through to allow us to be successful in that. And I said, if you guys want me to do AI, if you tell me I have to, I'll go do it. But I want to put it on poor data. And when you put that on poor data, then it's going to extrapolate the weaknesses and the challenges of data, and it's going to make more bad than good. So then that was my hook in to say, here's what we're going to go do. We're going to establish, first of all, it's not It's not just a data problem or a technical problem. As you're looking at your data, what it is, it's a business transformation. And meaning that, yes, I can go build like I've done before, multiple times before, the common data platform. And I can build out the ingestion patterns. I can build out critical data elements, the business ready data sets. I can go do that. But if we don't have the engagement and buy-in from the people on the front lines, first of all, senior leadership, and then the front lines of the business, to ensure that they're entering things in accurate, completely, and timely at the point of entry or when they're interacting with source systems, then you might as well not even have me here, right? It won't be successful on doing that. And so, the good thing is that when I was coming into Zayo is in January 18th, 2023, is I knew well beforehand that the data environment at Zayo was not in a great place. In fact, there was no strategy around technology or data, and we had a single monolith application that we put everything in to run our business. And there's no investment in technology, and there's no strategic planning in around it. So we knew we had to make significant changes. So I was coming in with wide eyes, knowing that was the fact, and we're going to have huge transformation. So as you were doing it, you have to build that foundational capabilities and a lot of things we'll mention to and talk more about. And as soon as you get your first, what I call business ready data set or gold data set, meaning that it's gone through the appropriate process and steps, we know it's good and clean data. As soon as I get my first piece of data as a gold data set, that's when I can start using data science, AI, and generative AI to it, because I know quality is good. And then I know the outcomes that we're taking from it, we can rely on and trust. And so that is, that's what I kind of framed up. It was the second day on the job, and I got thrown to my first board meeting, and that's what I kind of laid out, along with driving business value and through, which I know we're going to talk about later, data and AI quick strikes.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing in the industry today where you're seeing incredible pace of innovation and movement, particularly startups driving a lot of that. And then you're seeing the large providers, or the bigger companies moving much more slowly. I mean, that's not new. It's always the case, but it's particularly interesting within the context of AI, because to your point, those larger enterprises are the ones that have a lot of the data that could potentially unlock tremendous value from the application of AI in various use cases. And so that's a difficult conversation to have with the board up front, right? To just tell them, hey, we got to get our house in order, our data house in order before we make any real transformation here. How quick was the path to getting something that you felt was ready? How quick was the path to that gold data pipeline to make a move?
It took us to get our first foundational gold data set. It took about a year and a quarter to go build, because we didn't have a data platform. We didn't have anything in the data ecosystem, so we had to start from scratch. So I was fortunate enough where, my position was a board and PE firm backed position, meaning that we have to go do it. So I did come in with that. That was great, because I can build a greenfield environment in a brownfield company. The company's been around for 17 years, but I was afforded the opportunity to do things right. Now, what I didn't do is I didn't try to build a Lamborghini for every single solution. I was fit for purpose. The technology packages that we pulled together, I took some key anchors that we used for it, and I built around it. And then when I can then optimize on some of the cost structure, that's what I did when we were building the foundation. Now, I will tell you, when complementing that, I am going to bring out the data and AI quick strikes, because this is an important component that is often missed. meaning that, yes, like I said, it took a year and a quarter to a year and a half to get those first things down where you can start truly leveraging the data the way that you want to leverage it. In the meantime, you have to, what is proven, I can't just go give me, tens of millions of dollars and I'll see you in 3 years. You can't do that anymore. And so what I articulated was we're going to stand up a very small organization. It was 3 or 4 people. And we're going to focus on the biggest challenges that we had on the business. And we're going to use data to either increase the top line, we're going to, save money, or we're going to optimize, our operational structure with it. And so we, in the telecom space, there's some fairly typical things that you look at: churn, rev rec, service delivery installations, profitability of your centers, and things of that nature. And so what I did was I had a very small team, like I said, 3 or 4 people that were focused on just these while we're building out those foundational capabilities. Now, I knew I was using this in a suboptimal manner, meaning that I was creating technical debt because I wasn't necessarily using the gold data sets like I described to create the value generation. I knew it. But, if I can generate tens of millions of dollars of savings, I'm okay with sub-optimizing as long as it's very controlled. And then what we did out of those data and AI quick strikes, we were in the front door of the platform capability. So it became, okay, now we save the money, right? Let's make sure that we then do that and put it in our target state architecture and build it out. So it's a way that you can drive business value while you're building out the core capabilities. And so, in the first year, I know I probably can't, I can and shouldn't say specifics, but it was tens of millions of dollars in the first year. And within the first 2 months, I flipped my organization from a cost center to a profit center. And that's continued on, for the duration.
Yeah, I think it's amazing when you can find those quick strikes or quick wins, or however you want to define them as you're building out the foundation. Can you give an example of a particular use case? You mentioned a couple of the different business units or application areas, but can you walk us through a specific example?
Yeah. So a good example in our space is churn. There's two ones that you usually go after pretty quickly. One is churn, another one is rev rec. Those are 2 that popped out first. So obviously it's much more beneficial to save a customer than to try to go retain, to acquire a new customer, particularly in Zayo space, because it's B2B, it's big customers. These aren't, like you and I getting a high speed line to our house. This is, $1 billion worth of deals type of thing. So it's much, and it's nuanced. It's not just overall one customer. It's aspects of a customer. They have 100 orders or 100 lines and things of that nature. So that was the first one that we went after because it's the easy one. If we can make progress there, then it's retaining existing customers. So it's decreasing the cost of goods sold. And it's also retaining revenue, right, that would churn off. So that's that's in telecom, that's one of the first places you always go after, and very, very, very successful. And it happened all in 6 weeks that we went after it. And it was, it was double digits of millions. And then the second one that was a good example is rev rec, that you always want to look at, well, what have we sold, right? This is what we've installed and what we're billing for. And there were scenarios that arose that we knew that there was leakage. And every company has it. But that's a very simple one that you can use and didn't even get into the first basic components were even AI. It was just doing a compare and contrast and build a machine learning model and compare it back to our service orders or our contracts with our customers. And from there, then you quickly make matches and go like, wait a second, we're not billing for this service. And we then go bill for it. So these are ones that are kind of the initial low-hanging fruit, and they get more advanced more advanced from there, like service delivery timeframes. That says, well, when you're up there up front talking with the customer and you have an SLA of X days, well, can you predict based upon what you know and how you're performing, can you predict the confidence level that you're going to deliver within that time frame or not? Right. And that's another one that we created a dashboard that we actually had to do a crawling of open text fields to create a machine learning model then would predict. And we got up to an 83% confidence level that at the time of signing a new order from a customer, whether it be existing or new, that we could tell with 83% confidence level that we would hit the time frame we committed to or not. And then we could articulate that to the service delivery organization, and we had a dashboard that ranked them in order, and then they could go take action on them. So that's like more operational efficiency and then rev rec. I mean, we'll realize revenue sooner if we can do it. If it was 60 days and it's projecting 90 days, well, what can we do to make it 40 days, right? And so those are opportunities that we hit from the get-go and continue to evolve those.
I love those examples because there is such a tendency right now in the market to have generative AI and large language models be completely synonymous with AI, and forgetting that machine learning and all these other types of AI have created such value for businesses. And there's a lot of people that come on the show actually that have worked in utilities or energy or some of the sectors like you're describing, right? Where at the end of the day, the actual like more traditional applications of machine learning are driving immense business value, right? Like predicting churn, like lowering operational costs, like recognizing revenue earlier. And so it's nice to see that.
If you really look at it, Ben, it's actually more advanced.
Yeah.
Because it's deeper and you have to have a larger context window to go into and look at to bring that the benefit back. And you start talking about generative AI and AI. I think as of our last PI, we had 176 what I call business-ready data sets or gold data sets across all different disciplines of the company around it. And that's where we're, ultimately when we have that, then we also democratize access to citizen data scientists and citizen data analysts. So they can go directly in and use those, gold data sets. And then, they're working with the business every day. And then you can say, well, what about this? What about that? And they're using data that we know has high confidence that's good. So we know if they're coming up with a new idea, because again, they're closer to the business every day. They may be thinking of a lot of different opportunities to use the data than a technical person would look at and think about doing. So it's, that's the other aspect of this is it's not about, in my very strong opinion, it's not, I'm not supposed to be the expert of everything. I create the platform, the capabilities, the center of excellence, the business ready data sets, the gold data sets. And yes, I do have a data science team. And yes, I do have a business intelligence team. And yes, I do have a group that's kind of tied to the data science team that's AI related. But those are on for very deep, very detailed, complex, cross-organizational opportunities. But we also then provide accessibility to people across the business, whether it be a data analyst, they have to be trained to be a data analyst, or a data scientist, citizen data scientist, to allow them to have access to that data. But we know it's clean and let them have that playground. And then you never know what's going to come out of that. And then that's also too when you start looking at some of the platform providers and our partners. How do we leverage the capability within their tools? And we're going to focus it first on those gold data sets that then they can say, how do we use it? And how do we leverage those capabilities? Because, I'm sure you hear it all the time, particularly this podcast, is that as we don't know who the AI winners are going to be yet. We don't know. It could be not, it could even start yet, or it could be one of the big players today. And you do have to build in which I can go into this. You have to build in the flexibility into the data platform, in the sense that if you want to take advantage of the next evolution of anything that comes AI or generative AI, there's two things that I've placed a bet on. One is that they're gonna have to have gold data sets to then put context to what your business is. And with those gold data sets, it's made up of two primary things. Three, but first one is what I call critical data elements. And let's say in your data environment or your ecosystem, you have 1 million data elements. Well, I can't go solve for 1 million data elements for everything and make them perfect, but I can focus on the most critical ones that we use to run our business. And so those are the ones. We have 1,149 critical data elements that we partner up with the business data stewards and the business data owners to then vet out, describe, define, and own. And then what we do is say, well, how do you use that information, or how do you use that to then make decisions? Well, then you apply the business logic and rules along with those, and then that's what goes into creating the business-ready data sets, and then gold data sets. So the nuance around that business logic and rules, that's the secret sauce of any business. And what I've seen from historical failures from other places I've been is that business logic rules is disparate. It could be in source systems. It could be in ETL tools. It could be in consumption layer tools like BI tools. Well, I said from the get-go, I'm not doing that. I'm going to create it in Python libraries so that I can take advantage of any future AI capability or agentic architecture or AI agents or just straight an AI application. I want to be able to point them and have that knowledge for us. We own it and maintain it. And then have that into the gold data set so I could point them there. And then, yes, I did pick a tool, industry standard tool, that I put those business rules and logic into. But the more important thing is that they're in Python library, so they're portable to wherever I want to go. So if I want to change out that tool and go to a different tool, I have the libraries and I can go and I load them up and I can adjust, or if I need to point to an agentic framework or AI agents, I can do so. And that was really a differentiator that I've noticed, that as I'm out there talking with a lot of people in the industry, data industry, regardless of industry, telecom or healthcare or whatever, this is a differentiating factor that a lot of people aren't picking up on. So I did it from the get-go because, frankly, of my mistakes from the past, to be honest.
I love that. I would love to dig into that more. You touched on a lot of things. One around kind of the governance structure within the org, right? Of having this kind of hybrid model, something you hear a lot of people talking about in terms of having the center of excellence and building the core foundations. But then, of course, the business users are the ones closer to the use cases. They're closer to like the data owners, as well as you mentioned, for those different applications. And so that's where you see a lot of success. I do want to spend actually more time digging into what you just talked about, because portability is another big thing that comes up on the show a lot in terms of not getting locked into any particular provider. Mm-hmm. And I know that what people are excited about with agentic AI is looseness of it, or like the flexibility of it, right? Which also terrifies businesses because it's so unpredictable and it's not very accurate or reliable at scale. But there is this like exciting future at thinking about the ability for it to be taking decisions within the org based on good data, if you have it, with tight feedback loops and that sort of thing. But what I see right now is frustration with how poorly that performs, like how unreliable it is. And then we have all of these older, like kind of robotic process automation or just like workflow architecture systems that are RPA based on much more brittle RPA, like all this brittle rules and logic, but that operates very effectively and very reliably at scale. And what it sounds like you're doing to some extent, it's not like you have the data, then you have these Python libraries, which are, I'm assuming, executing very reliably, like your business logic very, very reliably.
Right.
But then you're opening up the possibility of an agentic layer, like orchestrating in between those elements to some extent.
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
No, you do. And that's obviously the key point. A couple things is you can't talk about AI or agentic if you don't have solid governance of your data and gold data sets. It's a deal breaker. Now, it's not going to be the only thing that, agentic architectures pull in, because they'll have unstructured data too, like, for example, climate data. Like, if you start looking at service delivery in timeframes, well, wouldn't it be great if we can use our structured data, gold data sets, and then you can pull in unstructured data, combine it, and then you can have other insights from it. So that's the foundation. The other thing that is, everybody always thinks about, well, it's going to replace jobs, it's going to kill jobs. And it's not how I think about it and how we've thought about it either. It's like we should be hiring 300 to 500 people, but we want to hire 30 to 50 people to feel like 300 to 500 people, right? So it's an extrapolation capability, not a contraction capability, at least in Zayo's part. Other larger corporations may have to do it a different way just because they're trying to optimize cost structure. But Zayo's approach is, how do we then extend and make us feel like more? Now, the other piece that I want to say is it does require things to be done differently, meaning you're always going to have a person in the middle, human in the middle. Right. And that may redefine some of the roles, like a developer in the future. And what I'm seeing is not necessarily ripping out code constantly. It's, playing, 4 or 5 different hats in an agile, scrum team, doing a recording from a business customer talking about what they want. And that drops into agentic framework, and it starts writing user requirements. It starts writing user stories, right? And starts writing a business case based upon it. But you have to have somebody that looks at that and says, well, no, I need to tweak this, redo it, tweak this, rerun it. And you're always going to have that human in the middle. And you're not going to get away from that in the near future. I mean, maybe sometime in the future, yes. But in the foreseeable future, you're going to have to always have that business context and, to feed back into whatever it's generating, so it's an accelerator, extrapolation, not a replace, how I look at it. But the people in those roles may need to expand what they've traditionally done, around it. That's my kind of thought from what I'm seeing with all of our partners and SIs and other things that I've seen over the last, 3 to 5 years.
That fits very well with what a lot of people on this show and people I speak to have said, in terms of, it's in an agentic world, almost every individual contributor becomes a manager of sorts, but they're managing agents instead of managing people. And I've heard an interesting thing recently about, ultimately, accountability for the outcomes of those agents lies with the manager of those agents, so the human as well. And that's a very, very simple governance structure to put in place when everyone is trying to figure out how to deal with some of the unpredictability of this. But it's an interesting future to think about. Like, what skills do you need to actually be able to do that effectively? And also, as you said, right, I think there's this know-how of sometimes the business logic, sometimes the process that is potentially not encoded in Python and that is locked in people's brains, and they know how to apply it in certain situations. And that tacit knowledge is very, very difficult to encode, either in an unstructured or a structured way. And so, like, having that human in the loop becomes so key.
Yeah. The one thing that the light bulb went on for me, and I know others working around me, is we didn't even think about it. But one of the biggest values out of the start is an agentic framework is actually on the front end. Like, think about it, as opposed to, like Zayo does PI planning sessions where we'll have 100 people talking about what we're going to do or planning out. We do a whole bunch of stuff and what are the business requirements and yada, yada, yada. And it takes, ends up taking a month to plan for 3 months. Well, some of the things that are out there today is, let's say you're the business owner for XYZ part of our business, and you just go like, hey, could you just describe what you want and what you need and be as specific as you can, and you're recording it. And you got to let them know that you're recording it, but you recorded it, and then you dump that in, you dump that into Agentic framework. Then you say, well, here's what we're trying to solve for. Here's a business unit. You put business context to it, and you do a recording, right? And literally by doing those recordings and dropping that in, and let's say you talk to the different customers, you can generate business case, business requirements, user stories, test scripts. You can start generating code from it that you can start testing. And it condenses the front end of all that planning and all that, telephone tag and explaining what you're trying to do. And then you can immediately go back like in real time and go like, well, here's what it would look like. Well, no, I meant this. And they go, okay, we'll re-record it, and you do it. And so that upfront time frame, you can condense down so much that is interacting with the business that's not what people aren't thinking about it that way or talking about it. But the examples that I've seen, like the light bulb one, and go like, well, okay, yes, it does the development, but oh my gosh, like think about the benefit and savings of, take 10 minutes and describe it, and then we put it all in, and let's look at what it came out, and let's tweak that, as opposed to, spending 3 days together and it's 100 people and a whole bunch of people are inefficient. Just think about that. I think that to me was, oh my gosh, like let's use that like right now. And that's not overly complex to go do. And then you can compare that up in the development cycles, right?
Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity there. And even going a step further of, wouldn't it be nice if there were that additional step, if that in that initial interaction with an LLM, for example, it's able to have the context of your business and the underlying logic. And then, because one thing that is frustrating with LLMs is they're quite sycophantic, and they'll just go away and do whatever it is you say, and they'll take what you're saying as right. And if you can ground it in something that's so relevant to your business, and then
guess what the context window is? It's the gold data sets.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the context window, and the business logic and rules that you put, combine with the CDs to create the gold data sets, right? And so that's why I always start with the first one is, AI monetization starts with data governance.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have a good foundation in that, you're not going to be able to scale. Like, I'll give you one, and maybe it's the last example. I don't know how much time we have, but let me give you a real example of this working. So, this was last year when this occurred, and when we started getting kind of a volume of gold data sets that we can, make some, dent into some of the business challenges. And so we had a network inventory where it was not optimal. It was managed in an Excel spreadsheet. And people have worked with that. If you have multiple people in there, it starts, messing up and overriding and who's on who. And we knew we couldn't keep doing it that way. So the business side of the network came to my team and just go like, hey, we need help. And this is 9:00 on one morning. And we just said, okay, well, what's your problem? What's your challenge? And described it to us. We go, okay. So we used, what we did is, it was 9:00. We spent 30 minutes with them. By 1:00, we actually had published a dashboard through one of our products that's a bolt-on to our cloud-based data warehouse. And we published it to them and said, here's you can use this. And I was using the gold data sets that were sitting inside our data warehouse, and unlimited people can access it. So within 48 hours, it went from an idea to 500 users. And then we built the feed from our financial system, updated every 10 minutes. It started every day. And then, over the coming days and weeks, we got it down to 10 minutes. So it literally refreshes every 10 minutes of what our network inventory, all the stuff in our network, what we're trying to build out. We have a live view of our inventory. And it was also a challenge that if you can't have people in the field that are, rolling trucks and going out there and building stuff, accessing your financial systems, because one, you don't want them doing it because there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Two, the licenses are really expensive. So we have a very lightweight way to do it, but it wouldn't exist if we didn't create a common data, single data platform. It wouldn't exist if we didn't have CDEs and the business rule logic combined to the BRDs to create the gold data sets. We have those gold data sets that we can access to, and they talk to us about it, and we go, oh, well, yeah, we have this, we have that. Pull it together. Here's your view. Boom. And they have access to it. And we saw it's continued to scale. So, just think about how quickly that occurred with quality data sets. Then we put our more advanced AI tools on top of that to say, well, what can we predict? Like where we're going to miss inventory, based upon the trends, where do we think we should order more? And it started rolling from that, but it's built off the foundation. And if you don't start with a foundation, you will not be able to turn around and do those things as quickly as we did.
Yeah, it's the foundational work enabling you to then move fast down the line. I think it's the classic, you got to move fast to move, or move slow to move fast.
Yep.
We're running up against time, so I'd love to ask one more question before we go. You've already been generous with your time, but what strong opinion do you hold about how to implement AI correctly that you think a lot of other people might disagree with?
You can't get caught in the hype. Like there's a lot of hype out there, but if you're not leveraging the technology /AI or generative AI to drive business value, then you shouldn't do it. I think it's better not to do it, not to do it, but focus on business value and support your internal business customers, then do it and have a shiny object. You go, oh, cool. I did I saved 10 seconds of my time because I had it help me write an email. Well, that's not valuable, right? To the business. So I think it's around, constantly putting that pulse on it, the data governance and structure is what matters, that allows you to accelerate faster. But while you're doing that, you have to always focus on driving business value. And that's a piece that you'll always win if you can deliver, savings to the business or increase top line or efficiency. You'll always win. And if you have that model in place, leveraging AI and generative AI is only going to accelerate or make it bigger and better. So that's my take.
Yeah, it's a good take. Focus on the business value. I'll have to ask one more follow-up question to that very quickly, which is just in that world where there's so much hype, and you're focusing on business value, what do you look for in a vendor? How do you separate the ones that you want to work with from those that raise red flags?
Oh, it's a good question. Everybody gets anxious about having vendor lock-in. People always talk about it in my roles and otherwise. You have to have some vendor lock-in, meaning that you have to realize to you what is the most important, piece or two in your environment, and you do have to lock in. Right, you do have to have a strategic partnership, and those are the ones that I look for that aren't looking to constantly try to sell me the next thing. It's what's in it for you, in this case me, and then how can we help you succeed in that. And then I turn around, what's in it for me is that it's what's in it for my internal customers and partners, right? And so you have to have a very good pulse on what the business is doing, what the critical path items are, what your challenges are, and be realistic and look for partners that can help you solve those challenges and have the scalability to do so. There's numerous, it happens all the time, but, in different places I've been, is there's always people trying to sell you something. I get calls all the time, every day. Yeah. But, you have to have that thread of, you're looking for the right partners, right? That aren't always looking for the short sell, but are looking for the value add. And so those are the ones. You can't have everybody like that, and I get it. It's a balance. But you have to look for, your couple that you are making calculated risk taking on, and take those and then supplement around the others. And then if those other partners or vendors, turn into that, then they can prove themselves to do so, and they'll do it in your environment. Right. And then contrary to that, if you see that they are a negative impact to your environment or trending negative, then you need to take action very quickly to exit, because that's not going to be someone that you can count on long term.
Well, that was David Sedlock. David, if people want to follow your work or get in touch with you, where should they go?
I'm on LinkedIn. You can check out. You do a lot of posting there, and I think I'm the only David Sedlock out there. But you can look at Zayo, or you can also search AT&T, and those two usually get the right person. But LinkedIn's probably the best way to keep a pulse on it, because I do a decent amount of posting and interviews and articles and things of that nature. So, and then people can feel free to reach out via messaging through there as well.
All right. Well, that was David Sedlock from Zayo. David, thank you so much for joining today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.